So I've heard your calls. I've seen what you guys have asked. You want to see me play Ready or Not, as well as make some story videos on Ready or Not. What's interesting is the Ready or Not game is getting released on consoles, and because it's getting released on consoles, they've censored the game quite a bit. And there's been a lot of lashing out feedback, dislike bombing on Steam because of this, because it got censored on Steam even though it was already out on Steam. So we got a video from Big Fry here, Big Fry TV, going over exactly what we're talking about in Ready or Not here, that's censorship. But for those of you asking, I'm hoping to stream the game tomorrow and then potentially make some story videos for the weekend, if not the weekend next week. But no promises. I got some family stuff going on. Hopefully I am able to get that stuff done, but we will see. I'm very interested in this one, and I'm very interested to see what is going on with the censorship. So let's dive into Big Fry's video here.
One thing I never had on the bingo card for 2025 is Ready or Not being downvote brigaded by their own community.
That's what we're talking about.
At a time during the Steam summer sale where Ready or Not is 50% off on Steam, you'd think we'd see a lot more eyes on their title leading up to their console launch on July 15th. And for transparency's sake, I have a pending deal with Ready or Not to celebrate their console launch. They wanted me to jump in. That was going to be some sponsored content for Void Interactive. And as you guys can now see from this chart,
that's a messed up chart right there.
Things aren't looking very good. It seems like for the last few days, people are getting a little pissed off. Articles being written about how controversial first-person shooter Ready or Not drops to mixed reviews as community slams the developers for censorship. What does this all mean? Let's talk about it. Ready or Not will be censored before launching on consoles, and it could even affect the PC version. Now, this article was published 2 days ago. It has now been confirmed this is happening to the PC version as well. And we're just gonna go to the source here and read through what's actually going on.
It's weird, right? Because they don't want to have two versions of the game, because then putting out updates for the game becomes difficult. And I understand that. And the real problem is the censorship, specifically from Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know which console is more strict, but I don't think. What is this studio to do? Just be like, you know what, we can't release it on these consoles because they're trying to censor us, and then they lose out on a bunch of money. I don't know what the correct response is from the developer on this.
Rating content changes. Throughout the console port process, we've done our utmost to only make changes when they're flagged as absolutely required by our first-party partners. Our age rating as it stands for consoles is ESRB M rating, PEGI 18, USK 18 to give an idea. Still, there are other game content requirements that console platforms have in order to exist on their systems, and a portion of these changes will be visible on the PC version. And instead of jumping into that, they go in and explain the reasons why. There are two main reasons that these limited asset changes may be visible on the PC version as well. Maintaining multiple versions of the game with different assets and
that's what I was talking about
increases the likelihood of bugs to appear in future updates. So because this game is cross-platform when it comes to consoles, things have to have parity. If the in-game assets were not the same, it would make crossplay unusable. And because people want
yeah, exactly. So this is actually a problem that's like with everything, right? The fact that crossplay has essentially become a staple on a bunch of games, Call of Duty included, it introduces a lot of situations where it can cause bugs in the game, like you're saying.
Both games have to remain the same. So what does that mean? It means we're losing a lot of gore and dismemberment. Player-induced dismemberment still has a large presence in the game, but is a little more limited as to when it occurs. When alive enemies are shot, they can undergo dismemberment. However, once they are dead, no further dismemberment occurs. Note, the level of dismemberment itself when it occurs was not actually toned down. Ultimately, we consider this an okay compromise considering our gameplay design already dissuades use of lethal force anyway. So if you have somebody on the ground, you shoot them with a shotgun, and when they're already dead, they're no longer being dismembered. Lastly, some characters' art involving torture were tuned down slightly to be less over the top. For example, the tortured police informant on Narcos is still missing fingers, eyes, and covered in fresh wounds.
So the first one doesn't matter to me. Like, it actually doesn't. Like, okay, you can dismember them if you shoot them when they're alive, but you can't shoot a dead body and shoot its arm off. Okay, not a big deal to me. This actually is. Because part of what Ready or Not does really well is the story of the situations that you are going in. This is why people are wanting me to make videos on it. I'm aware. I have plans for the videos. They should be really, really good. But as soon as you kind of pull back on the story of the game and how evil these people are that you are trying to take down, that becomes an issue. That changes the narrative. That changes the feel of the game. That becomes a problem.
In blood, but a little bit less so. So it's just been toned down just slightly. Plus, some instances of explicit nudity for a handful of civilians and one suspect have been covered up a bit more. Can't show titties. It's consoles, they're babies. Explicit representations of violence and mistreatment against children. Although we already make a substantial effort to present mistreatment against children in the game in a responsible way, we made slight thematic expansions of this philosophy in order to better meet certification standards. For example, the child on Twisted Nerve has an animation change to be unconscious or sleeping instead of previously convulsive animations. So remember that kid in the top floor of Twisted Nerve who was like convulsing on the bed because she was left by her parents, probably induced something we didn't really know. That's no longer the case.
See, again, that switches the feel, because you go into that situation, right? And you're like, go into the room and you're like, what have they done to this kid? Now they're like, okay, the kid's unconscious, right? That's a very big difference in feel. That's a very big difference in storytelling. That's a very big difference in environmental storytelling. See, those are the things that I understand why people wouldn't like those. And I get it. They can only show so much specifically with children, but that changes the narrative of the game now, doesn't it?
This is the same team that's staring down the barrel of a gun from all of the media journalists who were shitting on them for creating a school shooter level. They came down and said, fuck that. We're going to do it with respect. We're going to do it right. And we're going to do it whether you like it or not. But when you have platforms that are telling you that you need to change the contents of your game to be less violent, to be less explicit, to show less titties or whatever, you got to play by their rules. The changes with the console version are small enough that most people here wouldn't notice if we didn't say anything, but we want to be transparent.
Honestly, I give them a lot of credit for that. If this was, say, Call of Duty or many other games, they just would have done this. And yeah, maybe it would come out down the road, but they're getting ahead of that. And I do commend them for that, like legitimately.
Largely just evidence and nudity that's altered, and the texture changes don't affect the PC version. In conclusion, they're looking forward to their console launch and relieved to be fully finished with all of their console launch certification processes. And as you probably know already, this has pissed off a lot of people. The first comment on this post is huge respect for creating one of the standout games in its genre and keeping the experience alive and thriving years after release. I gotta say, on one hand, I actually agree. And as you can see, the clown emojis are being thrown out. You're censoring the game, not a fan. These ones are getting upvoted. Loving the new animations, but toning down the graphic themes of the game is a bit questionable.
Yeah.
I actually agree. It's one of the main reasons why we all got excited about this game back in 2017 when we first started seeing these concepts come to life. The school shooter level. Remember the initial concept trailer where they showed the officers opening up the shipping container and there were kids in there being trafficked and you rescue them? Those themes are what sold us on the game in the first place.
Yeah.
And like this person points out, it was either that, the censoring of the game, or they get an adults only rating, which is basically commercially non-viable. So
this is the thing, right? And that censors where it can be sold and all of these things. Should they have gone with that? Should they have gone with, we are the biggest AO game ever to be released? Maybe they could have gone with that route. But
here we are. We're sitting here at the cusp of a console release, and we have people now downvoting the game because they're not a fan of the censorship that is inevitably going to be coming to the PC version of the game. Now, here's the thing. For the console crowd, if there wasn't crossplay and they wanted to downtone it, like, it is what it is. The fact that people have already purchased the game, most likely based on some of those themes that you guys show off in the screenshots, in the trailers, and in videos that we have already made on this channel in the past, the fact that that now is being changed after a purchase for somebody is kind of a shitty thing to do.
It is. I also... How big are these differences going to be? Some situations, it sounds like a lot. And I think a lot of this game is selling how evil these people are, right? And when you downplay that, the game isn't going to feel the same anymore.
I understand not wanting to go adults only. If you're putting all of these resources together to make a console version for the console crowd, you want to make as much money as humanly possible to make that money back. I totally understand the business side of why you want to go down this road. The fact that it affects the PC release when it's already been out in the open for years on end is questionable, and it just downright fucking sucks. Awake here points out, here we go again, all PC players suffer because of console players. Yeah, refund sounds like a reasonable idea after downgrading the game. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if I'm personally like upset enough to want to refund the game and say, fuck it. Ready or Not is one of the best indie shooters that we have covered on this channel. They started off really, really rough, and they made their way to, again, one of the best releases that we have seen in a long time. But as the next comment points out, he believes that censoring certain aspects of the game is compromising the core identity of Ready or Not. And it's unfortunate that it has to be this way and the developers have to compromise. I'm sure they're not happy about it at all. I'm sure they would have loved just a one-to-one parody of whatever's on the PC version can be on.
Absolutely, because guess what? That would have been easier for them in the long run, to just port the thing as it is. But I think like what we should actually be angry about, and some of the comments are showing that, is the way that censorship actually works in media. Like, I don't know if many of you know this, but if say you're putting a movie out there, like if you say you want your movie to have a 14 plus rating on it instead of an M rating or an R rating, for example, they will literally be like, you get one F-bomb and one titty. Other than that, you go higher than that, okay, you're now M rated. Like, it's so, there's no nuance to it. There's that, like, the nuance to Ready or Not is that you are the good guy stopping pure evil, right? Pure evil, like as evil as it gets. And to take that part away changes the storytelling, changes what you do. Because in the real world, if you're a police officer and you shoot someone, you're going to feel guilty no matter who that person is. But when you witness that pure evil, it changes things. And this is really the only game that is out there that showed that. Now, if say you're a Call of Duty fan and you played the mission Clean House from Modern Warfare 2019, that is as close as Call of Duty gets to that, where you see them planning the attack. You see the bad guy's safe house that you go into. This is that on steroids. And this is like pushing the realism of that as well. And to take that part away, that is when it almost pulls you out of it a little bit. And do I think that this is going to completely change the feel of the game? Probably not. But it does change it a bit. So.
And the console version probably would have made their lives a lot easier. But if I could give the developers a little bit of advice, you do not want to jump into a thread like this with this response. For clarification, the changes aren't extensive. They're only minor skin changes, with the most significant change being that players lose the ability to desecrate corpses, which I know for some people is like, yeah, big deal, but read the room.
Yeah.
There's so many pissed off people. Gerard's ghillie just goes down a little further. The woman on port gained tattered clothes instead of being nude. Small changes like that. Kaminsky, you gotta read the room.
That's when you just shut up.
I think this comment really just sums up how I feel. Look, I get the overall challenge with the porting process, but that doesn't make the forced compliance of a console port censorship guideline on us feel any less icky. As somebody who backed this game back in 2000, I think it was 2017, 2018, it kind of sucks to see the neutering of that atmosphere happen because they want to put it on consoles. I totally understand. The console crowd has been begging, dude, the console crowd's been begging for fucking anything with a gun on it for years on end. I totally
Look at Delta Force, right?
get it, but it does kind of suck. And as you can see, their community hub is being more desecrated than the corpse can be now. There's so many people complaining. I was about to buy this game. Fuck censorship. Crossplay was a mistake. If they censor, we should all mass downvote the game. That's what's happening now. But the thing is mass downvotes and bitching on community hubs is only going to get you so far. When you look like the game's sitting at the last 30 days, gained up, it went down, came up. I'm guessing that has a lot to do with the Steam summer sale.
Yep.
Right now, there's 12,000 people online, which the game doesn't seem to be losing steam at all. When you look at the charts for 2025, like the game was kind of losing steam, trickling down 7,000, 6,000. You know, we hit the end of the month here in June. Steam summer sale starts and starting to climb right back up to around 11,000. It's not at its highest peak by any stretch. So while it's down a little bit from where it started at the beginning of the year, where it was hitting, you know, peaks of around 20,000, it hasn't dropped enough to really probably make a difference to the developers. I think they can clearly tell that a lot of people are pissed off with this change. And it's tough because I completely understand both sides of the coin. The developers want to get this into many people's hands as possible. People have been begging for them to do it, and this is the compromise that they have to make.
You also have to remember, this isn't the compromise that they had to make. This is really the only way they could do it. Just to be clear, if they had the AO thing on it, it wouldn't be sold in a lot of areas. And in fact, you may not be able to buy it in your region anyway. So like, it's tough, man. Like he's saying, I don't know what the right answer is. So like maybe at that point you just say, okay, we're going to have a console version with crossplay, and then there's going to be the PC version. And I don't know. I don't know what the right answer to that is. And it's a shitty position to be in.
To be able to pass those certifications. But I also understand the gamer side of things. I don't think the console crowd actually cares about any. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misreading it. I think the console crowd is just going to be psyched to have a tactical shooter that they can play on a controller on their TV in their fucking living rooms. I think the biggest problem is the PC people who have paid for the game already and now have to suffer those changes. But I can completely understand it from both perspectives, but I want to know what you guys think down below. I have a feeling that a lot of you are going to be upset at those content changes.
I want to read the comments of this one.
For the console crossplay parity. And while you're letting me know your thoughts down below, leave a like on the video, subscribe for more FPS content.
Check out the comments on this one. Censorship goes against the whole idea of the game. Yes, censorship of an 18+ games, hilarious. This game is rated M for mature, meaning no one under 18 should be playing this game. This is actually the real correct response right here. 100%. Why are we censoring anything for adults? Why does an M rating, meaning you have to be, I think it's actually 17, but be of that age, why is that getting censored? That is the real response. That is the correct answer. And that doesn't fall under something that the developers for Ready or Not can control. That falls under media as a whole. And that is 100% correct. That is what an M rating should be, right? If you're 18, have to be 18 to buy a cigarette. Are we going to start censoring what's in the, oh, they do that. Are we going to start censoring what's in alcohol because you have to buy that as an adult? Yep, you can only sell certain percentage. Are we starting to realize the problem here is that you can't actually be an adult and make your own decisions in anything? Like that's a big goddamn problem. That's a big goddamn problem. That's government overreach right there. Yikes.